Welcome back to the Wheel of Bad Films. Python 2. I know what you're thinking. Was Python 1 in this wheel? No, it was not. And I have not seen Python 1, and I actually have no idea what Python 1 is anyways. This time we're rocking a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's definitely better than the last few films for sure. When an experimental government weapon falls into the hands of a mysterious group of Russians with questionable intentions, it's up to CIA agent Greg Larson to retrieve top secret property, a giant mutant snake. Okay, let's look at the Python series. There's 4 Python movies. You got your first Python, you got New Alcatraz, which is apparently in this series, Python 2, the one we're looking at, and Boa vs. Python, a series I'm surprised there was so much about. According to Amazon, it's got a 4.5 stars from 82 reviews. Wow, this person really breaks it down. They go into like the sex and nudity, the violence, gore, and the language. 22 F words. Good thing they counted so I don't have to. Not that I was gonna. Okay, let's look at the better reviews. Boring and stupid. 1 star, 1 star. Monty's Most Frightening. Oh my. From Michael Butts. It watched it on fast forward. Huh? Before I get into this film, I want to point out that this might be the least obscure film I've covered on my channel, which really isn't saying much. Firstly, this film had been covered on Red Letter Media almost a decade ago, but not just that, this cast actually has quite a few famous people in it. This film includes Billy Zabka, who's freaking Johnny from Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. This film also has Dana Ashbrook of Twin Peaks fame. It also has Simone McKinnon, who I'm not as familiar with, but she was apparently in a couple dozen episodes of the original Baywatch TV show, and a guy named Mike Mitchell. This guy has actually done a ton of stunts in a bunch of different films, including Elysium, I, Robot, the Sonic movies, and The Last of Us. The combined talent and experience of this cast is much more than any other film I've covered, so this begs the question, why are they in this film? You can't find this film by typing Python 2. If you do, you'll just get a link to learn how to code Python, which would be a much more useful use of your time than watching this film. Also, Billy Zabka was in the first Python film. Why did he come back? It's not like the first film was highly regarded, it's like the same rating. And apparently Will Wheaton was in the first film because one of the most asked questions about this film is if Will Wheaton is in it. Apparently he died horribly in the first film. Spoiler for those who were planning on watching the first Python film. Not just that, but the next question is, do snakes actually grow that large? To which the answer says, snakes can grow to an unlimited size, which is actually terrifying if this is true. And the next question has an answer including cannibalism. Would you recommend this film? No, I would not. And lastly, is this movie about the Judeo-Christian relationship between God and Satan? No. I ended up seeing all this before I watched the film, which made me much more scared of what was to come, but it still could not prepare me for what Python 2 is. The film starts somewhere in Russia, and less than 2 minutes in, we see the soldier open a door that is clearly too small for him and he hits his head. Also, the editing in this first minute makes some bold choices. We see the soldier enter this all-white room, then it cuts to him outside the white room with his hands behind his back now. They also must have just got access to early 2000s text effects because the title card in this is honestly stupid. The guy who hit his head gives us some lengthy exposition. Most importantly, that these men are here to capture an 85-foot, 12-ton snake. Remember that.
This 85-foot, 12-ton python.
Also, this guy loves saying outstanding.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Outstanding.
The men go to get the snake on this very real helicopter. They enter this cave and the leader asks the same question I have. They open fire on the off-screen monster with some sus sound effects. We then get some choppy slow-mo and a POV with, dear God, that looks bad. Then the editing makes it look like they're shooting at each other? With some more grade A sound effects, we get the best action sequence of the film. With the snake taken down, the leader calls in an extraction team, not before the snake lets out one more sound. And then we go back to the credits. The last credit we saw was in the title, which was 8 minutes ago. There was plenty of nothing happening where they could have thrown this in. Why wait till now? It would actually be pretty funny if the whole film was spliced with credits as the movie was going on.
How big did you say this cargo was?
The whole opening scene is a mess and just seems really bad even by this film's standards. This might be because this whole opening sequence was shot last minute as the film was too short to be marketable. I don't think it doesn't matter how long this film is, I don't think you can market this film anyways. The director of the film is Lee McConnell, who has actually gone on to have a pretty successful career as a special effects coordinator in multiple major productions, the most recent being Civil War, which just came out. He did not do the special effects for this film, and this was his only directing credit. Again, lots of competent people involved. Why is this so bad? It could possibly be because McConnell's lack of directing experience, or it could also be writer Jeff Rank, who has written only 2 films, Python 2 and Deep Shock. Now we see a very real plane. These guys shoot it down for some reason and go to check out the crash. But right as they get there, they are shot down by another group, so long that they dissolve in the middle of the shooting. Then comes my favorite edit of the film. This very official dude shows up out of focus and there's something he needs to hear. Wait, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Apparently it's American property. You would think this is not the case for the snake because this does not look like it could hold
This 85-foot, 12-ton python.
We finally meet some official characters, Dwight and Nadia. They were shipping some stuff for this guy Aziz, but there was a mix-up with the currency. It could be that he is hard to understand.
We had a deal, Aziz.
Perhaps you should register a complaint, Mr. Stoddard.
Tempers flare when he offers money to sleep with his wife, so he throws a souvenir at Aziz. It's important to understand that Dwight was a former Major League Baseball player, pitcher to be exact, which is why he's so good at throwing, and this will be the catalyst of the film. Trust me, when we get there, you'll see it. Before a fight breaks out, Greg Larson shows up. He was apparently in the first Python movie. He also drives a 3 Series BMW according to the internet. He clears things up by giving Dwight and Nadia the $10,000 in US currency. Also, this seems like a pretty dangerous gig to do for $10,000. Greg tells them about the plane crash through bad editing and tells them that he needs their services to retrieve the cargo from the plane. Seems pretty simple. They need some time before they decide. We see the cargo ended up at a military base, looking much bigger than it did at the crash, which seems pretty sus. They detect movement in it and open it up to find the Python. It does make me question how an 85-foot, 12-ton
Python.
first fit in there, and second, got transported before they figured out that there was something in there. Either way, the Python causes havoc, spitting on and eating people. Now we are watching some baseball as Nadia and Dwight discuss how suspicious Greg Larson seems, but he can't be worse than Nadia's throws. He says that $100,000 would be enough for them to quit their jobs and leave this country. I think Dwight forgot that it's not 1955. Also, Nadia reveals that Dwight doesn't want to go back to America because of a past event. So why has he been so hard about getting US money? Like, you don't want to go back to the US, yet you want US currency? Dwight, I don't understand what you want. Either way, they end up deciding to take the job. They have to drive really far because the screen had to dissolve 10 times. They get to the compound to find that it is abandoned, which doesn't stop them from entering though. Dwight becomes suspicious when they pull out some weapons, but they are told to sit and wait. That $100,000 is enough to never have to worry about money again. Well, for a year or so. By the way, there's been this third person with them the entire time. He hasn't done anything yet, but he now decides to be useful and investigate what's going on. Something is going on though, as Larson senses something. Must be something really going on. It might be all this blood he sees, or maybe because he thought he went to heaven with how bright it is outside, dear God. Vladi, who's the guy that was with Dwight and Nadia, spotted something and tells them that they have to see it. What was so important? Smoke? Okay, that's not that weird to see. The Python attacks a few men and Dwight gets the bright idea to get out of here. But his tires were burnt somehow. We never see what happened, they're just on fire for some reason. And Larson calls for an evac but is told to take care of the snake. Okay, now follow me here. A minute ago, Dwight just made the smart decision that he's gonna leave this place and abandon the $100,000. Understanding the risk that he was putting himself and his wife and his other co-worker, friend, Vladi, whatever he is to them, and Larson pays him the money. Larson gives him the $100,000 and tells him to leave. So now they have the money and can leave. But instead, Dwight, who has the money now, and Nadia even tells him that they should leave, he decides to follow Larson back and put him and his wife and his friend, worker, whatever, at risk. I don't understand why he does this. There's no reason. It's so stupid. We also learn that Dwight left the US because he may have attempted to murder someone with a baseball pitch. That is a very strange way to commit murder, for sure. In the bunker, they hear something slither around, making Dwight realize that it was dumb to come back. The snake shows up, and it's worth pointing out that the snake is definitely not
85-foot, 12-ton python.
They are chased by the snake, and Vladi decides to be a hero, which doesn't end well. After the explosion, Nadia is blind temporarily because they just didn't want right for her character anymore. Larson explains the first film to Dwight through very choppy and confusing editing. Seriously, the editing in this film is wild. It cuts to black and white randomly throughout and just makes very weird decisions. I can't cover all of it here because there's just so much weird stuff going on, which that's a reason you should watch the film. You should always watch the film. But it is just insane how many bad choices they had through this film. Later on, they've realized that they're trapped by the python and they have to find another way out, and they get to this one exit, but there's a bunch of flames and stuff there. So Larson decides that they need to blow up the flames. It very much sounds like it will work. Just trust me, it makes sense. Dwight hears a noise that distracts him. Maybe if that noise wasn't so loud, Dwight would have heard this person come up and smack him with a fire extinguisher. It's the guy from earlier who, that commander guy of official status, whatever he is, never learned his name. The python didn't eat him, it left him alone somehow for some reason. Dwight repays the smack though, and then interrogates the man. He tells them about how the snakes were dropped on them or whatever, which clearly was not what happened. But Nadia did pick up on a key word that the guy says here.
What does he mean, snakes?
You know, snakes like these. So then there's this guy who goes to meet up with Larson, but he gets attacked and thrown off this underground sewer, whatever this is. And I believe he had the C4 that they were going to blow up the flames with. So Larson has to pivot. They say that they have C4 in their car, but they can't get to it. And again, the whole reason they need C4 is because they can't leave. So the only way out though is too small, but not for Nadia, who's now not blind for some reason. I don't know why they made her blind. It actually didn't affect the plot in any way. As she goes up, Larson enacts what...
That was a stupid fucking thing.
The Russians spilled the beans on the Snake Project, so the government is going to bomb this facility. During this, Nadia makes her way out, and she could probably just leave if she wants, but she actually ends up getting the C4, and she makes it all the way back to the underground bunker, which is kind of crazy she did that, but yeah, she did it. They want to leave because again, they're going to blow up the flames with the C4, but they leave the Russian dude behind who doesn't want to be left and follows them, but then the snake finds him and kills him, and that just covers up a loose end or, a side story that was just going nowhere. I'm just gonna skip over that there was this bald henchman who shows back up here in a few minutes, but he just disappeared for like 30 minutes in this film. However, I did want to include this main henchman, his death, because he makes one of the funniest sounds as he dies. So the bald dude shows back up and he just gets killed by Larson. Larson's doing this because he was told by the government that he's got to cover all this evidence up, and that includes Dwight and Nadia. He doesn't do a very good job though, as they get the upper hand on him, allowing the snake to wrap up Larson, and this is the last shot we see of Larson, so this is his death. The main guy of the first two films, and this is how he dies. He did, however, make a makeshift bomb. And hey, does that bomb look like a baseball to you? It at least does to Dwight, because he picks it up and he licks his fingers and he does a wind-up pitch and throws it into the snake's mouth. And the snake just eats it for some reason. It doesn't, try to avoid it. It just eats it. The snake that's been bulletproof and impenetrable the whole entire film gets killed by a dude who throws a baseball pitch into his mouth. Also, they covered up a thing earlier that the guy that Dwight tried to kill
hit a guy in his head with a 100 miles per hour fastball.
Turned out that he's actually fine and Dwight could probably go back to the US, even though he did probably try to murder a guy. We don't really cover that again, just wanted to throw that out there if you were curious how that story was going. So Dwight and Nadia escape just in time as the bombs drop off, killing the other snake in the process with, again, amazing effects. Dwight admits he's ready to go home, but I'm pretty sure Larson was told to cover up the evidence, so these guys are probably going to die. And that's the film. This film is just bad. At times, the poor decisions and weird results could make for a fun film to watch with other people and, you know, if you have friends or something. However, I watched this alone by myself, which does not help at all. There's not really much to add to this film, but I did want to drop, there was a clip from this thing called The Inner Circle with Jenny McCarthy, where she was talking with Billy Zabka and other people from Cobra Kai. They actually mentioned this movie in that episode.
Yeah, I went and did Python too, so shame on me. I was the only living survivor.
Also mentioned in that same episode were The Outsiders, The Karate Kid, Back to the Future, and The Godfather Part 2. So you can say that Python 2 is linked to Godfather Part 2. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and hopefully a snake doesn't eat you.